Yes, for legislation. Yes, that's on the 9th.
No,
So
couldn't
never
get
mind.
Aaron.
They just laid their other SHF thing from the 9th
To the 16th. Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Explain confusingly.
It was, yeah, I was like,
And
okay,
they showing it that time, and she, I don't know,
Oh,
but I deleted them all. But yeah,
that's
From me
I would agree about that.
that's what it was for me.
Work day.
back in July.
I would bet. I would just. She was there. She said.
Would that be, I didn't say it. I said yeah. That is not.
Get Pam in trouble again. No, he said it.
You're trying to get her out of trouble. There you are.
Alex a meeting invite for July of this year yesterday. So I don't know. We'll have. Well, I literally.
These are actually twice all year.
all right. Good morning, commissioners, and over to you, Chair Harrington.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday, December 4th, Washington County Roundtable. This is Chair Catherine Harrington. We now have a full complement of board members. Vice Chair Commissioner Pam Trees, Commissioner Jerry Willey, Commissioner Nafisa Bai, and Commissioner Jason Snyder. So we have an active day today. So we have several things, given that it's December, for us to walk through. So firstly, we have roundtable planning. So if you switch to page 2 of the roundtable plan, you see we're here in December 4th. The 3 prior entries in gray, that's because those were our recent months. One thing we still have to figure out is the annual discrimination and harassment training that the board needs. I've mentioned it a few different times and I still don't know what the target is. So there we have it. Then if we flip over, here is a first tentative plan for our roundtables for the county board in the new year. Shazam, it's 2026 is knocking at our door. So on January 8th, we've got both Washington County topics and CWS topics. We have another training session that day. And in February, we have both the county roundtable and a CWS working day. Then for March 5th, we're trying to see if we don't need a roundtable. That's why it says half day question mark. We'll know more as the months proceed. I am proactively canceling April and May. We don't usually have May with budget season, but I think it would help us all if we didn't need one in April as well. Then in June, we just have a couple of usual things that we catch up with. Then we're into the second half of the year. July, the 4th of July, I think is on a Friday in 2026, or the observance is Friday. Then I'm, for the time being, retaining having August on the list. In September, after Labor Day, we usually get together and really focus on what do we need to make sure we get done full court sprint to the end of the year. Commissioner Willey will be away for much of September on a wonderful trip. So having a full complement of, it puts pressure for having a full complement of commissioners onto October and the first half of November. And we are fortunate that in 2026, we have 3 Tuesday meetings as well, which Kevin included, our board clerk, Kevin Moss, included the 2026 BCC meetings list. Yes, there it is, correct. 3 different meetings. And he's really made it easy on us to have the roundtable schedule for both agencies on that list as well. Thank you, Kevin, for helping us be so organized. And Ms. Angie too, in making effective use of our limited time through your team and Alex's team with work sessions, but also with roundtable conversations. Next, because my hand is on it, the annual business timeline model. I added the word model to emphasize that this isn't intended to be an absolute, but rather illustrates all the major things that we must do during the course of any business year. We walked through it the last time, so well, it was a few months ago. So I updated it based upon those adjustments. So I'm really just going to highlight the changes or the adds. In the first part on page 1 of 2, at about the first third in blue, the CWS GM recruitment. We're working on that process outline now for the board. We're planning to take action on the posting and the brochure in January. Then that will get posted. We're aiming for the interviewing process, I believe, if I remember right, in an April timeframe for the final stuff, final round. Then I'm assuming there will be a lag between securing the hire and when GM will be able to start, so targeting summer there. I have updated the CWS, it should be GM versus CEO. But the review, you'll see it says 2027 in there. I wanted to make sure I identified that. Oh, and then in the bottom half on the Metro SHS uncertainty, really should probably say, well, I'll just leave it at uncertainty, but I added the and new facility meetings / events. And then on page 2, at the top, I added, considering that per contract, our county council review is in the spring. I thought it would be easiest for a 2027 board if we also have a special county council checkpoint review by the end of the year, just because we will have stability as the full board. And then the new composition can do what they would like to do. Let's see, other changes. I added the CWS GM onboarding in there. Let's see. I think that's about it. The one thing I may not have correct, I did not try to make sure that I was reflecting proper dates for the supplemental budgets. So that could be another correction. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Now on to committee assignments. So we usually use 2 different views. One is just the whole list. I added a new column. I don't know, Jerry, if we're not required to be part of the Association of Oregon and California Counties, are we?
I don't think so. I'm going to their annual meeting next week. It's Thursday and Friday in Salem. So, but I don't know why. I mean, I like being there. They're a good group, and it is tied to the timber, the Council of Forest Trust Land.
Yeah.
But I don't know why.
Well, that's why I put required as no, N on this, but I still, it's got that it's got that geographical association. That's all.
Yeah, and it's only basically 1 or 2 meetings a year, so it's not a big deal.
So you'll see what I did is I essentially put everything in italics so that we can confirm at the January meeting that that is what you want to do. You really need to put your thinking caps on, and you'll see it illustrated in a minute. And so the only reason that I might in the next 2 rows with AOC, I'm in regular italics or regular font, not italics, is because those 2 are the 2 assignments I want to make sure to keep. Beyond that, you all have to figure out how you're going to have a new liaison to the Metro Regional Supportive Housing Services Policy Advisory Committee, and you need to be on that ASAP or by the 1st of January because they're going to be onboarding people. And their plan is to start those meetings in April now, not in March. And so they're planning rigorous onboarding in February and March. So I removed those things that are done. The other thing, if you look at page 2, the CDBG Policy Advisory Board, I put a question mark on me because yeah, it's fun to do, but I didn't want to keep anybody from saying that they wanted to do it. Then the other reason there are other fonts that are regular is North Bethany County Service District for Roads Subcommittee. That's geography based. And then I want to continue on with the Jail and Community Corrections Planning Committee. So we'll be coming back to committee assignments in January 8th, but I wanted to make sure I got you these 2 tools. So you'll see that in the next view is the by person one. This is the update from removing things that no longer exist. I also added the things that I am the rep on as chair, the Tri-County Chairs Coordination meetings, the Washco Chair Mayor's meeting, and being the lead on our exec reviews, as well as on the recruitment. Hopefully this helps you. We'll come back to it in January. And then that brings us to our rolling agendas. Thank you, Kevin, for laying things out for us. We do have an update. On December 9th, we will have the Metro SHS reform update. And this is for us to deliver comments in time for their ordinance, as I've already sent you by email, for the 16th. If they change that date, we can always flex, but this will be our last stop for our opportunity to review topics. But this topic that you see here, Metro SHS forecast and one-time funding commitments, the housing team has asked to delay that till December 16th. See.
Reminder, Sarah, I had indicated to you last week that I will not be able to attend the December 16th session. We should date that on too.
Yes, I don't own this document. Assess people. Then we're into January. and things turn out to be busy there. No surprises. We should probably on January 13th put SHS, January 13th, January 13th in the afternoon. The second bullet should probably say SHS. Let's see, how are we doing? The flock one, for some reason, keeps coming back. It's
Different version. It's not
I
that.
printed it. This is what was in the packet posted this morning. I thought
I'll check.
I'm working with the team on that. Let's see. Reminder to ourselves, we have it here that Monday, January 20th is a holiday Monday. So that reminder to both staff and the commission. Things usually go haywire around holiday times, even though the holidays are known way in advance. So let's be mindful of that. I know I have an away long weekend that isn't listed here, so staff will have to add that in because the vice chair will need to be on point or the pro tem from there. February. This is where we have another Monday holiday. I should also say for either January or February, Grace and I, as you've heard many times before, are working on the proclamation for the nation's 250th and the effort for Washington counties across the nation uniting continues. So we're working on that to make sure the draft proclamation that you see for final review before we actually put it into the business meeting has accurate facts. But I have also asked Grace to help me check in with AOC to see if, especially the other Oregon counties that are named after presidents, are doing anything. And this goes back to my learning from the gentleman who's organizing all of us. He's from Arkansas, I think, or is it Tennessee? I think it's Arkansas. That this is the big event for his generation, like the bicentennial in 1976 was for mine. So, yeah. So then there we are in February. Reminder that we also have the state session in place. That might be useful to list under other meetings when the session starts. And similarly with in March, their sunny die date. And as usual, when we look at the great meeting list from Kevin, we try to make sure that as a good employer, we don't meet the week of school vacation week here, at least Beaverton, Hillsborough. So that's why we're not meeting the on Tuesday, March 24th. That's our first crack at Q1, calendar Q1. We have a bunch of land use ordinances that were forecast for no, that was fiscal year Q1, Catherine. Oh, so I've got to catch up with my schedule. I'm getting myself crosswise with fiscal year and calendar year. Cool. Anything else on those? Okie dokie. So we're right on time then. We're going right into the anything and everything Ms. Angie and John Steyer want to go over with us for the budget. And I suppose I better bring up my, oh, Did we didn't have slides in the packet, did we?
They were just added late last night.
Okay, so I'll bring up, that's why I bring my laptop. Thank you.
Well, good morning, Chair and Board of Commissioners. We're back. It's another roundtable to talk about budget and financial planning. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of what we'll cover today. We'll rediscuss just where we're at in the upcoming roundtable schedule, discuss budget reduction preparation, affirming budget direction to the county administrator, discuss your principles and priorities. We will bring back the budget calendar just so that it's once again in front of you. I will note there have not been any changes, so no new information there. And then John will talk a bit about chart of accounts and upcoming supplemental budget that we will need to pass due to the change in chart of accounts and the transition from Oracle to Workday. And then, of course, answer any questions that you may have. Next slide. So here we are in December. So we're following the roundtable schedule that has been presented. I will note if you do have any additional thoughts on the service level assessment, please bring those forward today as we continue to strive to answer your questions and information needs. Next slide. So one of the questions that has came up is what will be the impact of state potential budget reductions on the timing of our budget process? So unfortunately, we will more than likely not know any determination of state decisions until the end of short session when they rebalance their budget. So what that will mean is that we will be potentially through our budget process and then have to handle any of the changes through a budget supplemental. This is similar last year, if you recall, community corrections budget did not come in with at the level of the state cost plan or at Governor Kotek's proposed budget. So there were cuts that we needed to make post budget, but it was actually really within a 1 month period of time. So this is just the timeline of that process for your information. Next slide. And I'll turn it over to John.
All right, next slide is me. So we're going to start talking a little bit about budget. I'll provide an economic outlook update. There was the Oregon economic analysis new forecast for the fourth quarter. So I'll talk about that and cost allocation plan. Also an update on our projected forecast for the year and other topics. I would also note that it's been a year since I've been in this seat.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Time flies and I am learning every day.
And he's sitting upright and he's smiling.
There's a lot that's happening.
You're still here.
I'm really proud
And
of
you
it.
know we're all in the boat together, right?
Yeah, I'm really proud of our team. We're doing a lot of work, a lot of good work.
Sorry, I just can't help myself. I do want to just highlight both John's work and Sarah Keene's work, who's in the audience. I sent to your board an email updating you on the audit process, and we are absolutely making headway in correcting audit findings that we had seen that were found last year and meeting the audit deadlines. Unfortunately, due to the very lean staffing that we have, if you pull one staff person out, even just one, because there may be various needs or they move on to new opportunities or what have you, it impacts the whole workflow. And so we are seeing some delays, but we are still way ahead of where we were last year. So just want to commend the team for continuing to be resilient and focused on financial stewardship.
Thank you for that. So I'll just jump right into the State Economic Outlook. This was published by the Office of Economic Analysis on 19 November. And so the fourth quarter forecast. And I just thought I'd look at some of the key indicators, comparing third quarter to fourth quarter. For the GDP is one of those. Oregon remains level. For U.S. average is ticking slightly up, so there's a gap that's growing. The recession outlook is looking slightly better based on the improved financial market. The labor market was expected to decline in third quarter. There's been some job gains, primarily cited in the metro region area. So softening some of those concerns about the labor market. Of course, we have Intel and other large corporations in our county that we're watching and keeping an eye on. And then inflation interest rates, there's been some adjustments at the Fed level, and so bringing that inflation back, ticking up slightly. We had projected about 3%, and we're looking at the consumer price index, urban wage earners and clerical workers, CPIW, as our metric as we look at our COLA in the budget process, and we're tracking with these rates. Jump into next, of course, our budget pressures. This slide I presented last roundtable. Just want to remind the board of the commitments that we put into this fiscal forecast, and also note that last time I had a accounting error on one of the slides, so we corrected the FTE count for the sheriff's office on this slide. There's a number of things that we did add in. We had the bargaining units that are new, and we're also still working to ratify a couple of bargaining units, so that may change slightly. We added some positions back for the sheriff's office based on the need to accomplish its mission, and also the fact that the recruiting is improving. We have positions that will support our Workday enterprise resource planning in HR, finance, and IT. We're continuing some ARPA staff after January of 27, so mid-year next year they'll come on the rolls. They're important to keep things going. And then we had a meeting a couple weeks ago where we talked about the body-worn camera for jail deputies that's programmed in, and then the emergency proclamations for the SNAP and immigrant refugee assistance.
I think what we're learning both through the management reports as well as the very accurate and timely updates we get from our two execs is that HR, finance, and information technology, which are three of the core business systems that we need as an organization and are affected by all of our overall workforce needs, mandates, service levels. We're carrying a bit too lean, hence the reality of pull one string. It constrains. And so I'm of the mind, since we're trying to make sure we mention things now, that I think that the reality demonstrates that we're too lean in each of those domains, and we need to make a commitment to right size, get on track.
We need a little resiliency.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Let alone succession.
Yeah.
Yep. So I propose that we add that under commitment included in the fiscal forecast. Oh, well, I realize it's not in the fiscal forecast, but it needs to be addressed in the proposed budget. And I'm just not sure where to add that.
Absolutely.
I would suggest that's added as part of your budget direction to the county administrator.
Great, thank you.
What does that look like, though? I would agree with that, but with limited resources, how do you do that?
I would work with the team and then determine what that means. And many times I'm a firm belief that it is sometimes incremental needs. It doesn't mean it all happens over 1 year, but I'm not prepared with an answer of what that means to FTE. However, I will just note I had a really good conversation with two finance team members yesterday and just talking about this current situation. they're both in this room and just the work pressures that they're under, not only with the transition to Workday, but making sure that we are actually meeting our fiduciary responsibility as a government. And so they both share concerns. So I'm confident both from the finance team and HR, we can and come back with what that is. But once again, I'm not prepared to respond directly to that because it needs to be thoughtful and strategic while being prudent of fiscal resources.
Also, because you mentioned Workday as well, not only is there the transition to Workday, but there's incrementally into the future, how we want to be able to leverage new information there too, which may not be new FTE, but we shouldn't be cutting the very same FTE that we're going to need in order to maximize these new capabilities and make up for the fact that we haven't had the kind of reporting that we've longed for a good 7 years. So,
Commissioner Willie, to me, what it means in part is that if we had someone go on an unexpected leave, like we can still get the work done on reasonable timelines. And right now, I get the distinct impression in all three of those teams that one domino falling or one,
elongate
just
over
everything else falls. And that to me is not resilient. I don't know what to the administrator's point, I don't know what the resiliency does look like, but I know what it doesn't look like. And that's what in my mind, what we'd be wanting to prevent.
Yeah, I get that, and I completely agree with that. That's prudent planning on our part. Just was Tanya needs to get the magic wand out.
Yeah, and I want to highlight, as we look at as a One Washington County, our government role is delivering services to the community. These are the services that aren't seen, but if they fail, we cannot deliver services to the community.
Yep.
So there's that community benefit. The community may not see it, and there's the expectation that it is operating sound.
Well, we also have, we are also accountable for our budget and for other pieces. So it's to some degree, it's a regulatory requirement as well.
good discussion. I think the four of us understand that.
Thank you for that consideration. I know we've added some positions in for our Workday that are necessary. But as we go forward, I think it's a multi-year approach. How can we build that resiliency and work within the budget? Just on the right side of the slide, the CIP. So we're working the 26-31 CIP, so the 5-year forecast for capital improvement plan. We'll bring back to your board, I think, in April. Within that, there's unmet needs. There's facilities condition index requirements that may or may not be part of the CIP, but there are shortfalls. And then shortfalls within the CIP, and then some large construction projects that we have. Of course, jail expansion we've talked about, the courthouse, and others. So we'll bring that back in April and tie that into the budget. And then, of course, uncertainties not yet included. We have federal state grants uncertainty. We're working the classification and compensation study. HR is leading that effort, and that could include increases in compensation in various classifications that we need to be prepared for. On the museum collection, I think we're getting updated numbers and working through that process. Should have those.
Your next board presentation is scheduled for the 16th on the museum, and that will bring forward some clarity and follow up from your last discussion.
And then the medical examiner requirements, still working those FTE and building equipment requirements. And there may be more. So as the departments bring in their budgets, we'll see how it goes. So we have pressures, but we have some good news this week. We've reduced our general fund gap by about $2 million down to $5 million for this coming year, which is great news. And we've done that through the cost allocation plan. And so I have a couple slides to talk about that.
So
That's without
you
all
can-
the things
if-
that were in the left.
yeah, if
column,
you
I
can
think.
pause any questions on how did that happen until the coming slides, and John will walk through the house. Sorry, I'm reading body language.
I'm sorry, I'm just giddy.
Yeah, well, we were
You're
excited too.
Yeah.
You were right for me.
Very much excited. So I mean, looking at that number, 5 million, it's about 1.7% of our total expenses for the year. And if you were to take out the misdip and WCCLS transfer, it's 2.2%. So about 2% we're looking to find in the budget process, and we'll talk about how we think we'll get there.
Is the 9.4 different as well?
Mhm.
Yes, so they both dropped.
yeah.
Right, right.
Wow.
So yes. But I mean, across the planning horizon, so across where the dip in the bottom bars in the purple line, that's $51 million total in the projection going out
Through to 3031.
through to 3031. But that does not include all the things we haven't added in there that will be requirements.
And as we transition to the next slide, I do want to point, if you can still, whoops, sorry,
sorry.
John. I want to highlight words in bold, the structural imbalance, because I'm going to refer to structural imbalance in the next slides. Next slide. So as your board knows, we've talked about the structural imbalance we have where our expenses exceed our revenues. That's just a known fact. I want to re-show these graphs, and we've reviewed this in past roundtables, but just once again, you know, for context for community that may be looking at this, just the journey that we've been. So honestly, we've done a lot of work under your leadership in your direction to reduce the deficits that we're facing year over year instead of spreading that out over time. So it's been painful. There's been impacts to services. Yes, staff are stressed and strained. However, to be at a $5 million reduction, we've done work to reduce some of that structural imbalance we have. That doesn't mean that there's not service needs, community expectations, but from a financial standpoint, this is a good spot to be from a fiscal management. Next slide.
But didn't we have, if I look at 2021, didn't we have some cuts there? It seems to me like, I don't know that we've,
Yeah, we did.
in the,
Yep,
in
that's
the
why
years that
it's-
we've been on commission, have we ever had?
No, you
Yeah,
have.
This slide would say no, at least not
You
back
have-
in 2020.
Well, that's
You
what I'm
have
saying.
never not had
Cut.
increased revenue situation to add within the general fund. We've had other sources of funding come in, such as SHS funding, ARPA, CARES funding, but not specific
kind of
general
narrows
fund. Mhm.
So
Yes.
we ran on the wrong things. We should have called ourselves deficit hawks.
So when
That's,
you add these
that's
up,
national politics language.
so when you add this up, we're looking at $100 million in change.
120 plus.
Yeah.
I just added that, you're right. That's why I was looking at 19,
Yeah.
20, and 2021.
Next slide. I'm not going to walk through this. This is just for your information and for our community context, just high level, kind of the cuts approach that we've taken each year. Next slide. Next slide.
Yeah.
And today we'll talk in a few slides about the proposed approach for 26 and 27.
Yeah. Would you go back to that slide just now? I'm afraid my brain might be trying to catch up here. You know, we look at this and we look at what the costs have been. I don't know if we can do it, but it would be interesting to see what inflation has done during the same time. So we're not only looking at where we've had to cut, but where we've had to reduce in relationship to inflation.
Because those are real dollars.
Yeah.
Inflation in some of those years was
7,
north
8.
of, yeah,
Yeah.
7%.
So I just think it would make that slide even a stronger statement.
Well, if you, I wouldn't advocate for this because it's work, but if we look at how we manage the CARES dollars and some of the projects that we got done and are getting done using that money instead of backfilling deficits. We use that money for a lot of projects that were deferred maintenance.
Not a
Yeah,
lot.
we'd be in pretty bad shape. right
Oh, we would have had to close buildings that were
now.
unsafe.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's been, as you call it, quite a ride.
It's an adventure. Okay, next slide.
I'll have a margarita, please.
All right, it goes with. Brenda has crafted me a good analogy for cost allocation plan.
Thank you for
Um,
throwing in a vegetarian one. Still not vegan or gluten-free, but we'll take it.
Margarita pizza.
So the cost allocation plan is produced every year. It's how we allocate cost for internal services provided by the county. And think about administrative, county council, finance, HR, IT, all of those core services are funded. And we pulled them out 3 years ago, 23, 24, into separate internal service funds. So we have better visibility of those, which has been great. But going back to the pizza analysis, each department pays their share based on the cost ratio. Some might be based on FTE, some might be based on budget, some might be, for example, county council on billable hours. So there's different metrics in the cost allocation plan that produce that. But over those 3 years, the reserves have grown to a good level and good healthy level where we're at. And this year is the first year we're seeing some benefits of that, where those funds for the ISFs are starting to balance off, and we're in a good position. We do have good, strong reserve requirements in our policy 405, where we require a minimum of 3% contingency. Where there's contingency above that, it helps smooth out any changes year to year. So we don't want to see a big drop one year and a big increase the next year. We want to try to smooth those out. And so as I'm learning about ISS and how we manage that through the budget process, that we want to try to keep it steady across.
So can I dive a bit more into the why we want to keep it steady? So the cap charges go to departments. When there's huge spikes in what the cap charges are for departments, that means that they are faced with having to reduce services, or we have to find another source of funding to offset what that cap charge is. And John's going to talk a little bit about what's allowable and what's not under cap. So huge spikes actually impact our services that we're able to deliver directly to community.
Boy, these are really great lessons and summaries of practicing fiscal prudence, which you have to do in government.
Absolutely.
But also, I want to applaud the transparency and the clear explanations. Your summary also underscores how we've put in place new foundational tools. And with any tool, especially a first time, you gain experience in operations. And organizationally, you've done an excellent job of sharing learnings and getting us on a more resilient, to use the word Commissioner Snyder has gotten my brain to really appreciate, resilient into the future. Thank you.
Could you, the spikes that you just referred to, what drives those spikes?
Employee wages can drive them. Project like new FTE can drive that.
Exactly.
Also, because it is based on cap fees or based on utilization. Let's say, so county council works off, billable hours. Let's say a department's, something happens in the department and they're using more of county council, or they use more facility space.
What happens,
yeah.
they have to draw down their reserves that year.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Something happening.
Right.
So there are spikes that more evenly affect the entire organization. For example, I would guess Workday ERP, but there are individual departmental spikes, and that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Okay.
along the same lines, if a department has a lot of vacancies, there might be a more contingency buildup. And so, you know, those kind of things we also have to manage. New requirements plus savings that they have as well.
So to make this real for us a little bit, last year the percentage was what, and what will it be based on this?
As far as the percentage of growth or
Percentage of growth and cap.
Well, over on the previous slide, there's,
well, last year it grew at 8.2%. The year before that grew at 7.6%. So it's been steadily going up, but now we're able to bring it back down. So for the total services we provide for ISFs, it's about $95 million in this current projected budget.
That's a result, Jason, of transitioning to this. Took us a few years to figure out what exactly all the pieces
Right.
were.
And
so-
building up the reserves.
Right.
Right,
And internal services has taken cuts.
right,
Oh, so there aren't the churches out there.
right. So we did take some reductions in internal services.
It's not
this year.
necessarily.
that's why we're feeling the
Yeah.
pain with HR, finance,
Exactly.
county council,
Exactly.
IT. Yeah. Yep. So there are risks too,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And we've put a little too much hot water in terms of the optimal temperature.
I just go next slide. So we do 2 cost allocation plans every year. One is a full cost, which is the one I just talked about. The other one is it's the Code of Federal Regulations cost allocation plan. We call it a CFR cap, and it's based on CFR 200, which specifies what federal grants can pay for or can reimburse. And so when grant administrators are going through and working their budget, they can determine what costs can be attributed to grant and which ones cannot. And so where those costs are not allowable or not reimbursable, we either have to have a general fund transfer into that fund or the fund has to absorb those costs. And we address those either through a supplemental budget or during the budget process. The other thing we might have is matching funds. So a grant may come and you have to spend so much in order to get the money. And sometimes that's a benefit because we want to do the service anyway, like with the jail cameras. And there may be a grant that can augment some of that. So
But it's still really hard to see in the budget,
it is, but
which of those
it is. And I,
which you're gonna have new board members here in
Right.
27, so we gotta work towards additional transparency.
I am hoping that Workday and being able to see grants in there will help us a whole lot. And
Darn,
I am very,
even too soon.
I'm very excited about that. So we will see. Are there any other questions on the cost allocation plan, federal service funds?
Like your pizza.
So I'm not going to spend time on the next 2 slides, but they're just in the packet for your reference on the budget calendar. Next slide.
What I do want to say though, if we can, for the January roundtable, I think it would help us if we have, I realize we'll have lots of italics, placeholders, or blank. But I do think in January and February, we're going to need the rolling agenda to illustrate the calendar. Because I've been asked about staging certain things and I have to use different tools right now to kind of cobble together where there might be some barriers and obstacles. And our budget process is really important. So I just want to make sure it's as clear as we can possibly make it. That's all. You've already got the date set, right? We've got our Outlook calendar, so I don't see any obstacles there. So that's all. This is really helpful to see.
All right. So for this year, the proposed approach to balancing the budget is a bit different than where we've been. So the goal, of course, is to develop a balanced proposed budget. We know, as we've shared, general fund reductions will need to be made. And this year, the approach is the county administrator, assistant county administrators, along with the leadership team, will use the financial target that we shared with you previously and budget forecasts along with your budget principles and priorities to make strategic reductions within the budget. In the next slides, I'll talk a little bit more about the why. Next slide. So we have done a lot of work over the last 5 years as a county leadership team where I'm very confident that our department directors have a good understanding of what is mandated, what is not. They have a much greater understanding of just how our financial structure works within Washington County. And I feel confident that we as a team can come together to meet the budget reductions needed. This helps foster early organizational alignment and collaboration with departments, and also most significantly, it reduces workload for departments. It has been very challenging on departments because the 3 scenarios in essence require departments to create 3 separate budgets. This is at the same time, as a reminder, we are implementing Workday at the end of the year, opening budget, and we discussed this approach with our county leadership team just yesterday, and of the department leaders, there was a sense of relief of not having to go through 3 scenarios this year and working it up front with, once again, myself, the assistant county administrators, and the county leadership team.
So you described the result before the approach. So this third bullet is really, with this proposed process, you're only planning 1 scenario essentially versus 3.
Yep.
Which in turn reduces.
Yep.
Not sure what that means yet, but I'll get it in the next slides.
And maybe I should wait as well for the next slide.
Go ahead and answer.
We've talked about targeted resilience. We've talked about some departments may need to increase, a couple may need to increase versus the rest. So that will be accounted for
Correct.
in this process, and that's probably another reason that we don't want to go to a 3-tier type of reduction format across the board, aside from the fact that we're talking about 5 million potentially. Are you also thinking about what our projection is for the next fiscal year? And when we look at that, it's double digits. And is there any thought about how we could smooth that?
9.2, 9.2 or 4. It's single
Yeah,
digit.
it's
just
single.
a big one.
Yeah, close to double. And you're right, I am operating from old information, but I just wonder if that's part of the context here. We're certainly not going to 2-year budgets. I'm not suggesting that, but I am suggesting that are we looking at long-term for this as well?
Yes, and I'll touch on that the next slide. So here I'll briefly talk about the near term, midterm, and how long term will also be taken into consideration as we work through this process. So near term, so this process, we will be using your principles and priorities. What we will see with the need to balance, produce a proposed balanced budget, is we will continue to have a reduction in non-mandated services and elimination of services. Staff can no longer squeeze out efficiencies. You had just talked about resilience, so we will need to be proposing elimination of service. I don't know what that is right now, and I'm not prepared to speak to that. continue to look at alternative revenues options as fees, such as fees. So it really examining, are we for fees that should be in full cost recovery? Are we charging the fee level that we should? I want to underscore, I know that no one likes increasing fees, but fees are a revenue that supports certain services in the county. And it is far better to have incremental increases than significant spikes in fees. I'll take you back when your board had made significant increase in building permit fees. And so continuing to manage our fees based on the certain service fee philosophy is a much better approach. And it is easier on the user of the fee, whoever it or payer of the fee as well.
We did do those building fees in a ramped model as well.
Yes, and it was still significant.
I'm not, it wasn't
The first year.
significant, but it was in a ramp.
Yep.
And that was 6 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
4 years. Also continuing to recognize the full cost of services. And we've already talked about this. That includes the recognition that without solid internal services, we cannot deliver community-facing services. Within this approach, consideration of midterm, so looking at, Commissioner Treese, you brought up next year, looking out even 3 years or further, taking service redesign proposals. So it may not impact even a reduction this year, but it would be in place to make that reduction or change in service delivery model. Maybe it's year 2 or year 3. That could include looking at services that could be transitioned to a nonprofit model. It could be looking at a service that would be turning back a service to the state, but it can't happen in one budget year. It could be other things that I'm not thinking of, but once again, not prepared to talk specifics today, but really knowing that since we have a structural imbalance, we have to either stop doing things or do them in a very different manner than we currently are.
So in your bullet number 2 in the first section, continued reduction of non-mandated services, elimination of services. I think one of the nuances for me that I'm better appreciating now, and I think is covered in this bullet, but I want to clarify, is there are things that are, mandated and not mandated is very black and white. There's a lot in between that's sort of like you're required to do a thing, but it doesn't have a lot of specifications about what that is. To me,
For the money.
I want to confirm that bullet 2 there means not only the elimination of services, but also the sort of doing things less well or less robustly because there's not a description about exactly how it's got to be done.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the areas that I would actually caution against doing that is how we deliver our assessment and taxation services. So we could make a choice of not having the service level of appraiser services that we have right now. However, if we are not appraising properties as they come onto the tax rolls, not only us as the county lose that revenue, every other tax, the 65 total of 65 taxing districts in the county lose that revenue. It is not helpful. Right. And it actually does not support taxpayer fairness for paying equitable taxes. So there's things within also the mandates that there is a strategy to do it well versus ones that we may need to look at differently.
This is something that based upon participating at the AOC Governance and Revenue Committee for 2+ years, I've had the opportunity to appreciate more and more. You've been very clear with us for a good couple of years in our budget cuts that we shouldn't be backsliding on A&T. We are at the forefront. At the Tri-County Chairs meeting yesterday, Chair Roberts mentioned how they're looking at improving things by being more proactive about the reassessments after a remodel, which our team already does. But what I'm coming to now is that we need to find the resources somewhere within our current staff to communicate to our Washington County caucus members that they actually provide a reduced grant from the state for assessment and taxation. And it doesn't just impact the county, it impacts the following 65, 64 total taxing districts within Washington County. So our caucus needs to understand that, and every single one of, there could be another letter that goes to each of the heads of those taxing districts to say, you need to get more vocal about representing your reliance upon these best practices that the county government does for you, because they've been silent. They've been the silent beneficiaries of our incredible team of being forward-looking, efficient, and proactive for the benefit of all. And we're not getting the goodness of that. So it may be a project that our staff assistant team can work along with government relations and assessment and taxation to get produced, standard letters, and then do the right addressing and so forth. But I think it's high time that we invest in harvesting some of that goodness.
Tanya, a quick question on that bullet point that says continue to recognize the full cost of services. Are you anticipating new work to start, or are you just going to continue what
Just
you're doing right now?
continuing similar. I'm going to connect it back to CAP, how we charge departments for their utilization of internal services. That helps us measure, like, for example, what is the true cost of operating a jail? So continuing that model of recognizing a true cost of service delivery, that includes when there's new grants or other funding options, if they're that we are fully covering those costs. And I'm going to talk about deflection. I have a concern moving forward, depending on how the state handles funding for deflection, that we are going to be in a serious conversation of, can we continue to deliver this service with the funds that the state is giving? Because we need to recognize the full cost of delivering that service.
And since you mentioned the jail, I think previous years we talked about how we perhaps could go back to the cities and have a conversation about contributions. Is that going to include evaluating the cost of services to operate a jail and how cities could potentially pay into that?
Right now, that's not on what I'm proposing here. I would say that would need to come from board direction, if that would be a direction that the board would want to pursue. But that's a much larger conversation. And
programmatic.
Yeah, and this, yeah, and especially, and once a month I meet with the city managers and special district managers, and many of our cities are challenged too.
Well, and as every member of this board should know, that should have already been done with the public safety levy work. Because the cities consider their support of the public safety levy as achieving just that.
Yeah, contribution.
Okay, Then the longer term, I want to make sure that this bullet is on here. Implementation of new general revenue and resilient funding options. Staff will be coming back to your board. The reason I included that as long term is there's no, we're narrowing what those options are, and there's not an option that we can count on at this point to be new revenue within this budget. And depending on what options your board chooses to pursue, I'm not expecting that it's going to be in place for this budget year, and it may not be in place for next budget year either.
I'm, since this is the approach continued, so I have a couple of key questions. Are you just asking your teams for essentially a department-based proposed budget, and that's it?
Mhm.
Okay.
They will be able to submit budget decision packages, which means an ad. However, they will all be aware of, here's our fiscal state, we need to cut 5 million. And so in experience over the last 5 years, most departments are very prudent on what additional ads they're asking for.
So I've already talked today about, and we'll come back to it in our principles and priorities, about the strain. And in my view, well, 4 of us expressed it on facilities, HR, IT, and county council being too lean. But I'm also very uncomfortable about the fact that for this current fiscal year, we reduced the target performance level required for the facility condition index. And if you keep that same target over the course of time, you're actually backsliding. So that's one thing. But in addition, I'm not comfortable about just being one notch above going backwards. Given what we learned and had to make up for with the critical facilities improvements, we need to be trying to move up that scale. So I'm merely mentioning this as a risk, but I'm concerned that at a minimum, it needs to be considered in the midterm timeframe.
We want the lowest cost long-term of ownership related to the facilities. Not something that's declining and then going to require a huge correction.
I think that there's also factors that could change that relationship that we need to take into consideration going forward.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I raised it as a risk. Right now, I'm not sure how to incorporate that in terms of potential guiding principles or priorities.
Well, I think one of our guiding principles may be that we don't want to make short-term decisions that cost much more in the long term. And that's true in facilities. It's true it's also true of pavement condition.
Well, we do have a principle right now, consider long-term capital and operating needs, but often in organization, that's a kick the can down the road approach.
I mean, to me, our principle is we want the lowest long-term cost of these things, whatever that means. It may mean more investment in the short term,
but I think what I'm differentiating is using an action word. Sure. Implementing improvements in existing facility conditions, not just long-term capital and operating.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll work on it. Thank you.
So just to bring to light for any community member that may be listening to the graph that the chair and the board is discussing was included in budget presentations through this fiscal year budget process. And it shows our current operating resources within facilities, and it aligns to the top is called Disney World, will never be Disney World, but then it gets to a point that we are not adequately maintaining our facilities, and it's costing us even more. We are just right above that line. So I will ask staff to just bring that table forward. We'll share that with your board, and we'll just add it to this packet.
And I
as
do
well.
know, as I raise this, that I have been paying attention to a lot of different operational things to make sure I've been doing my homework on this. As we've purchased new buildings just in this current fiscal year, we do have the operating due diligence of creating that facility reserves for the new roof, for the building envelopes and so forth. It's not just the annual maintenance that has to be done. It's forecasting the longer terms and building that forward, which I know is in one-on-one conversations with our program auditor is having those policies and practices in place is something that she's on the lookout for. And I was able to share with her that I know that things are much improved there and continue to do so, which is why I'm bringing voice to it here. There are certain fundamental practices that we need to do an even better job through board policy and guiding principles in articulating, not just for this next proposed budget, but for future boards to continue to evolve things positively moving forward. Thank you. I have a much better handle now on your proposed budget approach. Thank you for the time.
Of course. Any other questions? Okay.
And just to finish this, excuse me, a little bit more. I don't think it just means buildings, facilities. I think it means like our software systems, like our IT systems, like our infrastructure as a whole, because what we've experienced in the course of the 7 years that I've been here is make up for what wasn't done over the course of time, because there was always a bank that we don't have now. And
or just put your head in the sand and not worry about it. There was a lot of that too.
But my point
I'm
is
the
that,
blunt one,
yeah.
sorry.
And my point is that it's not just about what might be related to the infrastructure that we see. It's also the infrastructure that we don't see.
I had a light bulb go off while the chair was talking, and I have a proposal that actually luckily includes that thought, because that came to me as right before you said it. So I think you're right on point.
This is why we love your new eyes, leveraging your past and current experience.
Any other thoughts?
No.
We'll move forward. So in the spirit, and this actually ties to some of the comments that I've heard, we also need to be looking forward. And so your board planning document that you've discussed, looking out to 2030, and this is not an exhaustive list. I want to just highlight that. This is just some of the items that we know that are ahead of us. Your board is currently working on revenue options. We know that there will be a new board configuration. And so as a county administrator, I just want to say how much I appreciate your board's investment in understanding and learning the financial realities of Washington County and also our operating and community needs. I personally really value that, and I know others do too. And we're going to have new commissioners that will need to be brought up to this through this journey as well. We have our short session we're approaching, which we know there will be impacts to counties more than likely out of that short session. That means more than likely reductions in where we don't know yet. And then followed by that, the long session. We know that we will have ESPD district referral in 2027. We're undergoing the jail and community corrections expansion project, which there will be not only capital needs, but also operating needs for both. And then as we look at public safety and library levy renewal or replacement, it will require a 2-year backward planning approach so that we're incorporating the jail community corrections, also recognizing the significant lift that the library levy and governance planning took this year. And we don't want to be in another place that we're not actively looking at the funding model on an ongoing basis too. So I just want to lift up, as short, mid, and long, we also need to be incorporating what your board has expressed as desires and future priorities too.
And I realized with the state short and long legislative sessions in alternating years, I think the board needs to have a principle, a business principle. I don't know where to go with this, so I'll just call it that, of having a proactive defense plan. And that's where we're still organizing these pieces. A&T is one of them, for example. We do have the legislative principle of no more mandates, but I think we're going to have to continue to be extremely proactive with legislative turnover, and also realizing the amount of time that all of you spend. I've reduced my time on legislative relationships, but the amount of time that you need to invest in that is something that, for example, the Planning Commission has no visibility into, no qualitative or quantitative measures. And so anyway, off my soapbox, back to budget.
Then we will transition into the budget principles and priorities. You will see on the slide changes that staff incorporated based on your discussion last month are in blue. And so I'm just going to maybe pause here and so you can start a discussion.
Appropriate. I have the one to add, or suggested one.
I'm just quickly reading all of them to make sure I've caught up with the base. Okay, I'm ready. Everybody else chime in when you're ready.
I'm ready.
No? Sure. Please. Okay, go ahead.
I think listening, that this is not just my thought. I want to recognize that. I think what we might want to add to this is to recognize the discussion is to say invest annually to ensure lowest long-term cost of ownership for all assets. So the verb changed, the action word changed to invest, and maybe we want a different word, but I think that is an important principle. Like we want to make sure that all of our assets are being cared for, and that means way more than just roads and buildings. To me, it means way more than that. We want our leaders thinking about always doing what needs to be done to ensure our lowest long-term cost of ownership for all assets.
Is that to replace to consider long-term capital and operating needs, or in addition?
I didn't really think of it as a replacing something, though I think it touches on a few of the ones that are already listed and maybe those should be reworked instead. But I think it is a point that's not reflected here very clearly right now.
So let me remind us as to why we have that fifth bullet. When we joined in 2019, within the first 6 months, we were asked to buy a new building right across the street in the corner without any regard to what it would mean for us to maintain that prior to figuring out how we utilize that asset. And you want to make sure that you're able to take care of opportunities that are unexpected. So we've done the work to make sure that as we have expanded the portfolio for buildings, for new software, I mean, we made our staff go through the rigor of not only what does it cost for us to use a new IT tool, but also to use it operate with it into future years, and this is, it used to be how you invest in a new version of Oracle, right? And then you had the annual subscription. Well, now we've leapfrogged right over into the cloud-based systems, but we still have to understand the future operating. So I still think it's important for us to keep this one because we're trying to make sure that we adhere to that. But I do see the point with this new one that you're talking or proposing. But consolidation can always be done.
Yeah, these are your
Yeah.
principles.
Yeah.
But my suggestion would be actually to keep the fifth bullet because we are still relatively new in having a CIP for the county. Even though it was required, we're still relatively new. And so to me, having an operating budget and your CIP, to me, it reaffirms that we need to be having both and that balance and following your board's direction.
The other thing that the fifth bullet includes is it says consider long-term capital and operating needs. And for me, that looks at jail expansion and some other pieces
And
as
the
well.
comment about positioning the organization for the future.
That's
a different
yeah,
thought.
that's a
also
whole different
important.
thing. This is more about maintenance and securing our current assets.
Taking care of our stuff so it doesn't cost us so much.
Changing the oil.
Yeah, so we don't have to change the engine.
I don't remember those days.
So that might also address that risk that I talked about earlier as well, with the facility condition.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
I think
Yes,
he's trying
that was
to
part
go
of what
both ways.
started my thinking on this.
Yep. Yep. I still, though, don't know with the other thing I was advocating for, and we have four of us that are looking for it, is advancing HR, finance, IT, and county council from the level of the support level that we have now to an improved level. So we'll have to, once we go through the priorities, why don't we check that?
And I actually think our principles cover. I actually think our principles cover the fact that we would want that done right now.
Well, the other thing that I've internalized is I support our decisions from the development of this current fiscal year and the prior ones. We had to consider cuts. What we have experienced in 2025 is the transformational reality. This new presidential administration is really has changed I mean, in our time, in 2019, we've experienced multiple changes of presidential administration. We performed under Trump 1.0, then we had Biden, and now we have Trump 2.0. And those are different. And the reality of Trump 2.0 is affecting the nation, the state, and therefore there are the federal things that affect us as a county government, and that effect of federal to state is also puts that state impact on us and is requiring particularly county council, but also departments, every grant, they have to scrutinize every single word, right? That's the easiest example for me to give. So that was an add of responsibility that and requirement that I had not foreseen with this current fiscal year, but our staff has been handling it very well, but with stress and with added risk. And that's why with your principal, I think we're better able, but I think through our budget priorities, we may want to come back to.
It's also the degree of disruption. And
Oh, good point.
and it's not just the fiscal reality of whether or not Medicaid is going to be cut, things like that. It's also the fact that we've had to deal with ICE involvement. And when I say we, I mean the DA's office, I mean the sheriff's office, I mean
The full county portfolio.
yeah. And I think that that was totally unexpected from my viewpoint. I think we all share that. But it's had an impact on all of us, both personally as well as professionally.
And yet we have our voter approved home rule charter and what we do and don't do. Okay, I think we can move on from principles to priorities.
So are we planning to add that one?
Yep.
So can I just repeat what I heard to make sure? So the added bullet point would be invest annually to ensure lowest long-term cost of ownership for all assets.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thumbs up.
Do you have any suggested edit? Like,
Is invest the right word? Do you mind if I just?
yeah, I think you asked the question. I thought about it. That's why I picked it, but
I'm comfortable with that.
Because it could be time, it could be resources, it
Correct.
could be anything.
it's general enough that I felt like the principle is.
I'm comfortable. Invest usually
But I
equals to
could,
money.
I could be open to a different word.
Evaluate to invest.
Evaluate doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
No, evaluate to invest so that the system has a flexibility, whether you're actually directly able to spend that year or not. It gives the opportunity to have that room.
So what I'm hearing is general agreement with the sentiment, and I'll work with staff if there's any changes.
Perfect.
Right now, yeah, if there's any additional work, but
It has
it
to
is
be an action word, not a kick the can down the road.
well, the reason I do like invest is because this is tied to budget. So it means dollars are actively being used.
So can I ask a question on different, and once we're through with that conversation, are we good with that?
Yep.
I have one question. You go back one. I think I struggle with the 1, 2, 3, 4th thought, evaluate new revenue opportunities for the chart, being a part of budget principles. And the reason why is I believe that is a separate and distinct conversation and strategic plan.
Like it's not truly a budget principle.
Correct, because we can't make it a budget principle. From my standpoint, I've been advocating for this for the last couple of years, and everybody agrees. But I'm just saying, I don't think we have really prioritized that, and it's probably because of staffing needs. I mean, we had the report of what the options were and things like that, and we're going to get that again with a more narrow focus. But it gets lost in the daily operational demands. And so I would love to see something, and we don't have the capacity to do this, I don't know what it is, but just so we just kind of establish a committee to focus specifically on that. How do we communicate to the public why the needs for this, the woes that we have, as you've already pointed out, the special districts that share the revenues. How do we design something that is their number one priority? When we put it into our budget principles, it gets lost for the next 6 months.
Well, hang on a sec. I'm struggling a little bit. Because of this bullet, this is really what helped us kick off the general revenue options and regional transportation sustainability options. I know I didn't get the acronym for the last one right. And we're still in the early days there, right? They came to us a few months ago with possibilities, and they're working on, I can't remember from the rolling agenda, I think we have an update still coming to us in December. So what this sent the message is over 2 years ago is, look, we had been looking at just 1 year budget. And so we stretched ourselves to go wider than that, and works along with the other principles around mandated versus not mandated, enabled, but not fully funded, all the combinations there. And so in some ways, this is with the budget reminding ourselves, the staff and the public, that we need to continue the effort on new revenue opportunities for the short, mid, and long term.
Why it matters in the budget is I think we actually need to say we're prioritizing the work for new for that line. I don't think evaluate's the right.
No, that's what I've come to.
We want to say in the budget for next year, make sure you're planning to be able to do the work around this. That's what
and I agree. I like the prioritized verbiage, but again, I just get a sense that we've kind of been.
You think there's not enough work happening?
There's not enough priority to it from the standpoint of there's only so much capacity we and the staff have, and I think we're at that point. But at the same time, this has been a frustration for me to every year talk about budget cuts. We can't operationally, we can't function like that for a continued period of time. We have to be talking more seriously about solutions. We have to stop this budget cut stuff, okay? Because we're talking about now prioritizing required services versus non-required services. So we're talking about taking a government of the second largest county in the state of Oregon and shrinking it down to a manageable, because we don't have enough money. And we recognize that. But we have to change that. We can't continue that mindset on down the road to 2030.
Absolutely. So we have agreement, I believe, on the need for that. This is one reason why I pushed this draft layout here, because at our current staff investment level, the soonest we can have proposals developed is for the election in November of 2028. That can't be utilized until fiscal year 30.
You and I worked on that calendar too. It wasn't quite that far out, but it was far enough out, and considering we're literally 27 days from 2026.
Yeah.
Gets here fast.
But part of what from my first draft of that, whiteboarding it with you, I've come to realize that we were really fortunate in our 2025 off-year election And if we continued on, if there wasn't a new board in 2027, I bet we would accelerate that.
And let's be clear, you're talking about an operating levy. Is that correct?
Well, that's, I'm not quite
just-
so
Maybe.
focused on what it is, but
It's something
it's
that
gonna be-
generates money from,
Or more than one something.
Yeah. and which would all, from my mind, we also need to look at economic growth. We need to look at all different pieces
That's true. Yep.
to, we need to be able to focus on
but
how
we
to.
don't know what, I guess my point is that we really haven't honed down in what exactly is it that we want, except to stop making budget cuts. And so,
Well, I think
what
there's
is
a
that
There's
number?
a lot of work happening in the transportation side of this,
Yeah,
So what
which kind of went first.
all
I
of
mean,
this has convinced me of, sitting here today, combine this with this, we have a gap for proposed FY 27, a gap for proposed FY 28, and a gap for proposed FY 29. But fiscal year 30 could be an inflection point.
what do we have left though? We got 3 more years of cuts after 7 years of cuts.
I
So
understand.
what does the organization look like at that point in time?
So the best I could do,
Mhm.
I thought, pushing the edge of the envelope, was proposing last month that we look at the 2-year gaps and making structural changes for 2 years. I think it's, yeah.
Can you help me understand what you mean by structural changes?
So can we project this slide? This slide number 8?
John's going back.
So if I'm derailing
No,
this
you're-
conversation,
You're not, because this is important. It's worth the time because it will help us
Okay.
be set up. So I'm looking at slide 8. Taking this, what I've proposed is 2028 is a knock your socks off, and that board, if I was elected chair, I would be pressing my colleagues to have a jail bond in the May election of 2028 and a potential operating levy, countywide operating levy in November of 2028. So that those dollars would flow for fiscal year 30. So up there, we have 2 yellows. We don't have, there is a yellow box here. We just don't know the amount for FY 30. Okay.
Mhm.
So FY 30 is where I'm suggesting the dollar flows. So think of that as a structural imbalance fix. Okay.
I guess I would like to, not right now because there's too much detail to this, but I would like more specificity on that thought process, because to me, aside from the fact that we're going to have at least 2 new board members into 27, it probably wouldn't be fair to say, oh yeah, by the way, in 26, we decided that you have to do an operating levy or some other revenue generation ballot. And so
Well,
maybe
it's
that's
more
not
of,
fair.
we've done the best we can do with all the
Here's your
shit
option.
that's happened.
This is what we recommend.
Yeah.
And it's why we said, staff, bring us as much work on this as possible without delay through the end of 2026. We've said we're prioritizing GRO for 2026. Push the edge of the envelope. Do not let us up on us, even though it may warp our brains.
If it is helpful, this item is scheduled for December 9th for discussion. So at that work session, if you want to have a discussion relative to how we are structuring the work, Commissioner Willie, I heard you talk about potentially like board subcommittee or committee. This
Right
is
now, the board is the committee.
Yeah,
correct, but I'm just saying, and relative to what resources are being expended for the project, I think that that can be that discussion time.
Can we add some time to that topic?
and I guess maybe what I'd be asking for then is much more specificity on planning for this. So if we said we'd like to go out to the general public for something on the ballot and I'm going to accelerate, Catherine, your plan, November 27th, knowing that if they pass in November 27, we won't even get the revenues until another 12 months later. And that would impact another budget cycle. So with that, but if we would give that specificity and then 9 months from now say, wow, we were way too aggressive on that. But at least we kind of put a line in the sand and said, we need to be much more intentional and specific about where we're going with this, rather than just putting it on our budget principles and then next June we talk about it again.
Well, so if I can interject here, I know that the three of us have been through a lot and have really pressed hard on the accelerator for improving the county situation. I am highly influenced by the fact that I can count on these two being on that board in 2027. But as of late, what I've heard out of our composition is a consistent voice to slow things down, to slow things down, to slow things down. And if all five of us don't understand that the shit continues to hit the fan, being potty mouth here, and that we have proposed a way out of this, don't slow down. You have to accept responsibility and move forward, or there are going to be serious consequences.
Well, and realizing that, again, I don't want to create additional burdens on staff who are already, at full capacity. So is there a plan B that we can do?
I think there's additions. I don't think, I think that we can talk together at the next work session and talk about things like economic growth. I mentioned that earlier. How are we positioned? We've got a state legislative group and a governor that looks, as just this week, that there may be signals of hope there.
As long as
that
we have increase our workload.
My point is,
I agree.
that
I need to
it's
stop
a
saying
broader
that.
world that we have to look at.
Yep.
And that's what I want to make sure that discussion opens the doors for a more complete look at this.
Yep.
I just want to make sure it's clear. I have no interest in going slow on any of this. I was talking to the county administrator before I even took office about why we weren't charging lots of things that every municipality charges for.
Franchise
If they're,
fees.
yeah, exactly. That was one of them. I mean, it's like, what is going on here? Like, I have no interest in going slow on this.
Or why haven't we taken the vehicle registration fees to the level that we could have?
Yeah, good question.
10 years ago, the commission blinked.
They did
and
more
took
than
half.
that. They put it on the ballot and put no effort into it.
Well, and then they turned around and increased the fees after the ballot people voted it down. So, you go, wow,
That's not us.
so
It's definitely not us.
and I don't even know what we're talking about in vehicle registration fees. I'm not a big proponent of increasing fees, but at the same time, we have to maintain our survival here and the corporate survival in the county. So, this is good enough. We can have further conversation on this.
Thank you for
like
bringing it up.
Yeah.
to make it.
I think it's a good conversation.
But can I make one point here? Contrary to, I would prefer that we don't remove it from here. because it has significance in relationship to the budget.
I wasn't advocating that we
Okay,
remove
good.
it. I was
Yep, good.
advocating that we maybe,
Okay, I'm
we
comfortable.
find
with
it, they have to run.
I do think we may change, we maybe should change the word evaluate.
I agree with
Yes,
that.
yeah,
I agree with that.
but also,
actively
yep, go ahead.
look for.
Well, or
prioritize.
prioritize work on new revenue opportunities for short, mid, and long
Okay,
term.
I'm comfortable with
Can I also propose, so in our committee assignments list, don't know if anybody noticed, on page 2 of this view, second to the bottom, internal public safety levy annual plan review. Aaron Calvert put together that committee that includes a board liaison. Okay. What I heard from the discussion earlier on the annual library funding governance stuff, there should be a new entry on that. Okay. And we've, through our former BCC focus list, now documented as the POR, our governance, revenue, and transportation one, because I'm not getting the acronym right, is on our focus list. We set ourselves up to say, in principle, maximize us. And now we've reaffirmed we're committed to that. So we have a commitment, max us out in 2026 on that project. And be creative.
Is there any more work that, I guess I'm looking at Pam here. Is there any more work that you think we're gonna have to do now that we've passed the library levy, but there's still discussions?
The
about
IGA work, very much underway.
that? Is there,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
are we gonna need to be, are we gonna be engaged in that? I guess I can look at Tanya
Well,
on that.
that's what
and see.
Catherine's raising, and somebody should, one of the two of us should be, and somebody should be on public safety.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be one of the two of you either.
That's very,
Out of,
Yeah.
out of the 5 of us and then
We can
into
regroup
the
on assignments.
2027 transition.
and the only reason I was saying that is that there was such a knowledge base that
Yeah.
it was built up.
I respect that, absolutely. Yep, but I don't want anybody
It
to
does
think
mean it's,
public safety is already predetermined. It's not.
Marnie and Lisa might be happy, but with somebody new.
Are we gonna give them a vote? We get voted off the island?
I think we are.
Oh,
Okay, thanks for that comment.
Can we go back? I want to circle back on the change to the bullet point and propose based on what I heard from discussion.
where,
Prioritize evaluation and execution on new revenue opportunities for short, mid, and long-term fiscal sustainability of the organization.
prioritize evaluation and
And
execution
execution.
of,
I like that.
Yeah, good ad.
Okay.
Like that.
okie dokie, now we're on to priorities. Good work. Okay.
Do you want to take a few moments and review these? There's 2 slides. While you're doing that, I'm going to take a quick bio break.
Yes, okay.
I'm gonna
Um,
go to my good-
We'll reconvene at 11 o'clock. How's that? let us know when we're back online.
All right, welcome back, commissioners.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. So we're continuing in the board roundtable, and we're picking back up with our 2 slides on the board's proposed fiscal year 27 budget priorities. We have 2 slides on this, and we gave ourselves a break to allow ourselves time to reread these 2 slides. So now I'll turn it over to my colleagues for comments, anything missing, modifications you'd like to see. I may be the only one, so I'm happy to start first.
Before, jump in. Here.
Okay. So I have both slides printed at once for myself. On the second bullet that starts operationalize, design the future, and blah, 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 talks about major systems of county government, such as, well, it does say such as, but as you've heard from me in my brain, I'm concerned about county council being under pressure, extremely under pressure, but it is just a such as, so it's not limited to those. But I think that's another standard
So
business.
you'd rather have it added?
Why don't we just add it?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alex, are you okay with that?
For consideration, I would suggest that you include FFMP, facility, fleet, parks to that, just given your last conversation on facilities and keeping up with our operational
both out.
needs.
Then I have a question about the third one. I know we've had it in the past because they do happen, you know, weather events particularly happen once a season, at least. That's been our track record. But I am dismayed at how the federal government current proposal from the administration is to cut funding while they haven't backed off of expectations through Department of Homeland Security. And I'll be a bit perhaps too proactive in sharing my individual view. I was part of the Metro Council and the regional decision to move from what was then REMG, Regional Emergency Management Group, which was all volunteer based in terms of staff, and an all volunteer organization that went after federal grants. And this was also following, you know, after 9/11, 2001, DHS was formed. And emergency management was brought under, you know, FEMA under DHS. And Patriot Act and all that. So the learnings from REMG, also the learnings from the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami, of which I learned a lot in my role with RDPO. And I wanted to, as a board member, switch off of RDPO. I felt I'd done my time, and I appreciate Commissioner Treese. You've worked with John Wheeler, who is excellent in the work. But now we're faced with the federal government is backing off of funding, has not yet backed off in terms of requirements for us to have plans, and the state certainly has not backed off. And so I'm wondering, I've internalized that we can't do more with less, and we have to right size doing less with the less that we actually have. So which is why I think at our most recent work session, I piped in that RDPO, I understand, is having to ramp down significantly in terms of staffing, but we can't make up
No.
to that minimum staffing by paying more dues. And so that's the situation I find myself in. So,
Could I make a comment here?
yeah, absolutely. This is discussion time.
And I believe what I said was there may be a request for more funding. There is not to
Mhm.
this point a definite request for more funding. So I want to make sure that we all understand that.
Yeah.
That I'd be surprised if there wasn't.
And I appreciate the heads up of the possibility,
Mhm.
emphasis on the word possibility.
What brings us to this conversation too, and the reality of this conversation.
And I don't want our great emergency management staff to think that we're cutting them off at not just the knees, but the ankles. We're not pulling the rug out from anybody at all. But I'm just not sure that the word plan for necessarily helps us appropriately for 2025 going into fiscal year 26 and 27. That's all. I figured now is the time for me to at least put it in.
If it's helpful context as well of just additional impacts that we're seeing from the federal government, we have learned, so the county is required to create a hazard mitigation plan. The creation of that plan not only benefits us as a local government, but all the government entities within the county to be eligible for federal funding. The cost of the plan somewhere between 200 and 250,000. We have recently received notice we will not receive that funding anymore. So this is, in essence, it's moving to an unfunded mandate. We have to do this plan to receive federal funds, but we're going to need to determine how to fund the development of the plan, which will include asking our partners to help contribute because they benefit fiscally from this plan, being able to access grant dollars. So it's not just RDPO with the federal government changes.
So it's a
funding,
requirement to receive any federal funding?
specific, mainly transportation funding is
Okay.
that's one
Well,
of them, but
that's a
yeah.
big deal.
So we're trying to figure out how do we fund this plan right now, since within our department budgets, we don't have cushion over 5 years of budget cuts right now.
So I'm wondering what to consider is instead of plan for, adjust our response and implementation to new realities, right? Leaving it nebulous, but recognizing that there's a new reality we've got to figure out. I'm not trying to say figure it out this way. But
I mean, we still have to plan for and respond to emergencies and disasters. I think that the point I'm getting from you though is that the funding to do a lot of the planning, maybe some of the
Mhm.
response is not what it used to be. But I don't think it's an optional experience to plan and respond to emergencies.
yeah, you're right, because the
Disaster.
feds haven't said we don't have to do it. It's a mandated service
That's now
that's now unfunded.
I guess they would argue, this is a weird one. They would argue it's not actually mandated because you don't have to accept federal funding for things. But we want to. So I mean that's a weird
How about
dynamic.
we have to sort out?
Yes.
It also helped to close the definition a little bit by saying local. I mean, and specific to the county. I mean, we know that we can't. We know that we will interact.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out ways to make this a little
Oh,
bit
that our
more-
response is to local emergencies and disasters.
And to the chair's point, maybe we can, like, after a comma at the end of that, just acknowledge, adjust to the financial changes from
federal government.
state and local or state and federal government. around funding for this
I
activity?
think
Or
that's,
something like that to acknowledge that? I don't know. if
well,
that's-
maybe it's also to plan for the impact of federal and
Yeah.
state on our local emergencies and disasters. I mean, maybe we switch it around a bit.
Where did we, I can't remember, Ms. Angie, where we talk about changes or adjustments to federal and state. We have it somewhere in the prior slides.
Is it the next one down? Are you thinking about where it says state, federal, cities and region, but that's transportation?
Yeah, so, well, that's working. No, I was trying to get at the context.
We, as I read through this, we don't have a
Oh,
bullet
it's in
point
the uncertainties on
Yeah,
slide 7.
because what we're experiencing with the changes at the federal level isn't where we were in prior years.
Mhm.
So there's not a bullet point that's explicit.
No, but that budget pressures often used in the proposed budget presentation and in your summary. So it was just that it's far away between slide 7 and slide 23. So I had to go back and remind myself. So I'm comfortable that operationally we have some things to figure out, and I don't think we can really set a course yet, principle or priority wise, any different than we
But
are.
we're acknowledging that there's
Yeah.
some significant financial uncertainty around some of that.
Well, maybe that's it, comma, acknowledge.
With the
Financial
acknowledgement of the
Financial uncertainty.
uncertainties. Plan for and respond to emergencies and disasters with the acknowledgement of the.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that'd be good.
So chief note taker.
Oh, sorry, I'm wordsmithing in my head and writing.
So what
So-
we're thinking is plan for and respond to emergencies and disasters with the acknowledgement of continued funding uncertainties.
Acknowledging federal funding uncertainties.
That's fine.
Okay,
Is it just federal?
Most of the state money on this front comes from the
From feds anyway.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's flow
just
through.
administered
Yes.
through the
yes,
state.
it is. The state takes their 10%.
That's one way of
It's like
saying
the
that.
king.
No, they do.
It's
I know they do.
Like the king.
Sorry, that was old RDPO. Maybe the new RDPO is a little different.
So I'm going to repeat that again. Plan for and respond to emergencies and disasters, comma, acknowledging federal funding uncertainties. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up, but I think when I was reading this bullet point, I think the budget pressures sort of conditioned me to sort of focus on local impact. So I wasn't thinking, yes, the federal, I think that's a really good addition, the federal funding piece out to call out. But I was also thinking, how does the county prioritize responding to emergencies and disasters locally, right? Like, how do we pivot our budget priorities when there's a disaster that is impacting the residents and the citizens of Washington County? So that, I think,
So how about
that's
plan for and respond locally to emergencies and disasters?
yeah.
That does what I was talking about earlier too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, everybody?
Yes.
Yep, okay, great. So that's it for me on 1 of 2. 2 of 2.
Can we wait for I got some comments.
Oh, yeah, if you do.
And I thought, Jason, did I hear you had a comment you want to make, or was that? Anyway, so the first bullet point, how does that differ from the conversation we had before the break and we put on the previous page to prioritize the revenue opportunities for the chart? How does that, isn't this redundant?
Well, one is a value and this is
Which
a
one?
priority, right?
The top, the first bullet,
Top one?
yeah, focus on the financial plan to address, isn't that the same thing?
Well, fundamentally, principles are one thing, and then our priorities are a slightly different thing.
So we want to prioritize.
Oh, you're saying you want the word prioritize?
But no, I'm just, it seems to me like that first bullet point is the same. with
Yeah,
the same,
probably.
conversation that
Yeah.
we had on the
That's probably a
fourth
good
bullet
call out.
on the previous page. So
But what it
this
does is prioritize that bullet point.
because we read, because
Put it
it's
right at the top.
redundant.
Yeah,
Very funny.
that's okay.
So that, and then my only.
I'm not comfortable with removing it.
Okay, okay.
Well, is that what you were proposing?
I was proposing, I thought that was kind of the same thing
I
as the
don't think
fourth bullet point. So
No.
Principles and priorities.
was asking for a explanation of the difference between the two.
So what I got out of that is keeping it, but change the words from focus on to prioritize a financial plan.
Okay. Okay, no, I'm just asking for a conversation. And then lastly is the
You
last,
got it.
the last bullet point is value and retain our employees. So I got it just a second here. I'm kind of lost here. Okay. I think value and retain our employees should be the first or second bullet point. That
Like saying these are in a
rather than
priority
just
in
kind of
order?
buried in the middle. It's oh yeah, we got to value and retain our employees. I think that needs
Are these prioritized in order?
No,
no,
but
Never
I
had.
understand.
but they are. They are just maybe not intentionally.
But if you're.
I think it's great to move it up.
Yeah, I do too.
Great.
But it did cause me to ask the question of whether they're actually.
They're not
in
rank
our
order.
No.
Okay.
But we did add including training opportunities a
Mhm.
year or two ago because we cut that out previously. So I just want to bring voice to the fact that it isn't a once and done. It's ongoing, and that's one reason why we carry this.
So are we moving it to the top?
I love it.
Well,
I like it.
that would be my recommendation. Yeah.
I think I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on slide 1 of 2?
Thumbs up for me.
Okay, slide 2 of 2. I have a few things here. For me, the first bullet I have problems with. I do want us to continue to partner with the state and the community to protect public safety. And you've heard me say before, behavioral health to me is part of protecting public safety. I don't know what we're talking about with protecting public health. Right. We've moved beyond, we're done with
You're on the
COVID
third bullet?
recovery. No,
No.
I'm on the first
It
bullet.
doesn't,
Is
it doesn't say public health.
The
Yes,
third-
it does.
Public and
oh, so,
behavioral.
so in other words, public health and baby hair.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
because last year we were explicit.
So that
about
was a
behavioral
COVID
health.
carryover. Probably.
Yeah, so
I think for me, I read it differently because we're the public health authority for the entire county. And so I thought that's how I was interpreting. And we need to continue to advocate for the public health modernization funding piece of it. So that's how I was interpreting the public health part. Yeah, we're coming off the pandemic, almost at the end of it now, but
this is budget though. This isn't
Right.
legislative.
yeah, so that's how I saw it. It's part of our budget because if we don't get the money from the public health modernization, then we're not.
Then we don't do the work.
Yeah, but we're the public health authority. We can't.
Right, that goes back to our legislative approach of state. If you don't pay us to do it, we don't do it.
Yeah, but it's not that easy to say we don't do it because if you have an outbreak, you have to save
No,
lives.
if you don't do public health, you give it back to the state and they do it. We've been through this in prior discussions.
I guess I would ask a broader, like a lot of these, I can read them and I can visualize specific things that I can think you'd be doing in the budget or that we'd all be doing in the budget. This one feels a little bit more to me. I guess I can't visualize what would be different if it weren't on the priority list a little bit. And so I guess I just want to ask the question of like from a leader perspective, what does this one mean to you that you would do differently because it's on there that you might not do?
Well, I want to go to context when this came up. It was during COVID
Okay.
and the use of CARES and then ARPA funding. That was the why this was in there from a priorities.
But it-
So,
and that part, that works stuff.
so that was the why.
That's the
here
context.
as a bullet point.
And then with the state, we've ramped up our public health obligations. So this is where my comments on this slide are. That first bullet, the third bullet, and the fourth bullet. So we need to continue finding solutions for our public safety facilities, our public behavioral health facilities we've done, right? That's open, but we've moved over to operation, but we don't have additional budget that we need to add there. So I think this third bullet, we just need to talk about find funding solutions for our public safety facilities.
And you're including a courthouse and
Yeah, that's all part of, been
Just
there,
wanna
done that with the
just-
white paper and
just
the
wanna
whole
make sure.
S&J ecosystem. Yep, you learned it well. Then deliver public safety and justice services in a way that builds community trust. I'm just asking, is the word deliver still the right word? I'm not uncomfortable with the word deliver. I'm not saying we have to change it. I just want to make sure it is the right verb. So this is where 1, 3, and 4 are just the ones I was looking at. And for me, number 1 is about public safety, including behavioral health. Is the change I would make.
I have a comment, and my comment is taking into consideration what you said about legislative agenda versus budget. Okay?
Yep.
That's good. That's a good juxtaposition for me to think about, because my first thought on the top bullet was about the work that we're trying to do to protect our funding with the state in relationship to behavioral health. So, but that, I can see where that would fit under a legislative agenda, but it also, without that funding for behavioral health, we will have to cut our budget.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to decide if that.
So as far as I'm concerned, I see. I get it. So partner with the state and the community to protect public safety is sweeps in community corrections, juvenile, courthouse. That's a pretty big portfolio. But what you've heard me also advocating for multiple months is that behavioral health solutions keep our downtown safe, our neighborhood safe, our city safe,
Mhm.
our county safe.
Mhm.
And so on one hand, I'm perfectly happy to change this to protect public safety. But I don't want to lose that behavioral health is necessarily part of that.
I want to throw as I'm listening to the discussion around legislative priorities,
Mhm.
et cetera, and that those are not the same.
Correct.
It's supposed to be our budget
Yeah,
priorities.
exactly.
Our,
Thinking that way.
like I guess I would question whether that all of that's true and we need to do all of it. I don't know that it even belongs in here.
Behavioral health.
Actually, the whole bullet that we're talking about.
You're talking about the third bullet.
No, the first
No,
one.
the first bullet.
Okay.
Well, this is where, but with the public safety ecosystem,
Yep.
our budget is affected in a big way by our partnership with state.
But our way to fix that is legislative and advocacy, not some direction around our budget to our team. That's
it. I see.
that's
I
what
see.
I'm coming.
Okay.
So it's,
that-
it's
For
probably
sure.
both.
Yep. I'm there. Gone.
That was quick.
I would agree with that.
So what I hear is removal of the first bullet point because it's not specific to budget direction for this.
Well, similarly with the second
I
bullet,
think so. I mean, yeah, I have the same question about a couple different things in here.
but I think the third one isn't just about facilities. It's finding funding solutions for our public safety system,
Yes.
period. So it's facilities and operations.
Yep.
I'm good with that.
That one, fair.
Find funding solutions for our long-term public, we don't need to add immediate, mid and long-term, but excuse me, let me start over. Find funding solutions for our public safety system.
Period. There's no period. So.
That's the third bullet. I'm going to just repeat it back. Find funding solutions for a public safety system.
And we could just add the fourth bullet. And deliver public safety and justice services in a way that builds community trust. Or continues building community trust or fosters community trust.
So you're making that one bullet.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah. Otherwise, that fourth one kind of stands on its own.
Yeah. Thoughts?
I'm good with
Others?
that.
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to repeat that again. Just
Yep.
find funding solutions for our public safety system, period.
No, oh yeah, no, comma.
Comma. Okay.
And deliver.
And deliver public safety and justice services in a way that fosters community trust.
Can there be periods here?
We'll work
Yeah, on
that.
bullet.
Is everyone thumbs up on that?
No, Kevin says no. Not when that's a bullet.
We're gonna get it. Punctuation. Going to the bathroom.
Okay, so that was all I had on this slide.
Okay, I want to go back to bullet point 2 because I heard there was a comment on,
It's gone.
was everyone thumbs up on that?
Yep.
It served us well while we were working on affordable housing and homelessness and needed to establish priorities. We've normalized that now.
You're correct. That bullet point came when you were just planning for the SHS revenue.
I just want to restate what I said a moment ago, which is that none of these things are necessarily unimportant or not things we're working on. They just don't right now belong in these budget priorities
Yep.
right now.
And there are certainly things that we, back on slide 7, have made commitments to. And I'm wondering if, for the sake of you're moving forward with staff, does the board need to signal through our budget priorities to deliver on the commitments to be included in this fiscal year? See what I'm getting at? I don't know, for example, that where we've talked about the ARPA transition and continuing those 4 critical staff support positions or the body worn cameras. Well, the body worn cameras go towards that trust that we've talked about.
So I would suggest maybe consideration that when we put together your budget principles and priority, this will be approved on consent, that we attach slide
The forecast, those
Yep,
slides 7 and 8 would be
as
great.
attachments to that for that context.
Yep.
I think that's good.
Can we move on to the third from the bottom?
Prioritize countywide revenue on countywide services.
I don't know why, but it seems to be that it feels like it's missing prioritize the use of. And maybe that's
Yeah, but probably add clarity to what's being meant.
This feels awkward without it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Prioritize the use of countywide revenues on countywide services.
Same thing on the next bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it. Oh,
that one's-
got it.
We still use revenue.
Prioritize the use of revenue. Is that what you're thinking, Pam?
Well, though, the second to the bottom one reminds us that there are state shared services versus state enabled services. And so we need to make sure we're delivering on the state shared services before we address the state enabled but not required. That's why that third bullet is important. That last three really are priorities and different.
So maybe it could
Speak
say
to different-
prioritize revenue application on county and shared services.
Yeah,
It just feels like it's kind of.
Yep.
Missing a word.
you're right. Prioritize the use of
Right.
countywide revenue on countywide services and county state shared services.
Do that.
We'll combine those two.
Yeah,
I like that.
So given your discussion, I just have a clarification question. If you go to priorities 1 of 2, the fourth bullet point on transportation,
support a connected multimodal
Yeah.
transportation system.
what are you hoping to achieve out of this budget? I'm just reflecting back on public health, behavioral health,
You're questioning whether that fits in the category of the.
for this fiscal year,
Yeah.
what are you trying to accomplish?
So for me, if the state clawbacks, the state, correction, let me start over. The federal government has done something here in the latter part of 2025 that I've never experienced as an elected official. Budget rescissions. Okay, we're still trying to figure out, where did HR1 leave us? They've not been very transparent about all the budget rescission actions, right? Some they had to vote on, some just by their rules just went into effect. And we haven't had a chance to internalize all those yet, which means to me, yes, we want to continue to support our investments in a multimodal transportation system. But if the feds change the landscape, which could affect revenues through the state versus directly, through the budget, we expect you to reprioritize things.
I think if I'm reading your point, it's that's more of, again, a legislative agenda push type of topic, not necessarily something for the budget.
I'm just lifting it up,
Yeah,
given the
I-
previous conversation, so that I make sure
I-
I have clarity
I don't.
from your
You don't.
direction.
Okay.
Yeah. We committed to, I haven't figured out all the essence of this because I simply don't know. Okay. It may not add any particular value if I had all the facts about the budget rescission.
Mhm.
And the answer to the question of, did that change any of the implementation or finance curve for misstep? Or for any other grant follow-up that we have for
So
our transportation staffing level.
what I'm hearing you say would be more that we need to be in the budget, we need to be prepared to be responsive to funding changes in our transportation system.
Sure, yeah,
Not
what-
necessarily.
You're right. Yeah.
The way the bullets, to me, the way it's read now, I'm wondering, was that like put in part because of like the Southwest Corridor 3 or 4 years ago? No, has it been in there longer than that?
I don't think it was Southwest Corridors.
Directly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really, I think it was, wasn't it TriMet issues, some other things that were in there?
And we were trying to get straightened out our whole misstep programs,
Yeah.
3F,
Okay.
bonding and
Yep.
all that. So I've pulled slide 7 back up for myself about uncertainties and convinced myself we've normalized this through our operations.
Mhm.
So budget wise, it doesn't add any value to me,
To be a priority.
with the saving caveat for me that federal and state grant funding uncertainty continues, which includes the, so is the transportation package going to be on the November ballot and on whatever ballot they're talking about for repealing it, which would continue to put in chaos.
You'd be okay with removing that bullet?
I am.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to be consistent.
I think I think it was a very good ask of us.
Or should we change it to our service portfolio
Or what?
or across our service portfolio?
I don't, you need to speak in
What
a
would be the
full
whole
bullet.
sentence?
Yeah, like support connected, like change that to, because I think, I see removing the transportation part of it, but I think partnership with federal, state, cities, I think there's some services that could be impacted.
I just don't think it's not a, I think it's a good thing, but it's not a budget priority.
Well, you know what might be a budget priority? Think about it like this, as I'm thinking about how we've talked about the disruption of the federal government and the problems that that's created. Do we need a budget priority that addresses that issue across the board everywhere?
What would it be?
It would be,
Only if we needed to invest in additional resources, for example, with government.
To react to what's happening.
yeah, I'm thinking about something that is focused on being prepared to react or to a budget crisis that was presented by the federal government. I mean, that's pretty strong, but I'm thinking about.
That's pretty much our whole year this year.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so that's,
And I don't know how we do that.
and
We don't have any money.
and the
anyway,
only reason I say it is that this budget priority list goes to our community. And it is a form of communication to our community about what.
That's why we have this slide. That's these priorities.
That covers the context.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just thinking about
I mean, because this, yes, it goes to our community, but this is really direction to our team.
to our team.
Yeah, these priorities help say
You're right, and it's not like
solve
they
the
don't know.
proposed budget using these priorities. You got to meet these priorities first and foremost, or we haven't achieved what we need to achieve through the proposed budget priorities.
My flare-up side was just, I needed to pull it down.
I think it's a good question. These have all been good discussions from my assessment.
I think we have through our POR document also established program direction. It's still multi-year. And so that, I mean, we've done as good as we can to project our expectations. And, you know, Ms. Angie always reserves the right to come back to us and say, you know, in a month or so, we've been doing this, we need some additional priority direction.
Is there anything now that you think is missing?
Well, just given this discussion, if you wanted to add something, an option could be actively monitor changes in federal and state funding that would impact the fiscal year 27 budget.
That gets right at what Pam was saying, and it's probably something that
Thank
should be on there.
And that gets
Without quite there.
you were talking about across the portfolio, so that it's not just transportation, but
Yes.
it's all of the areas.
I think that's a good add.
Thank you.
So that means I am striking out bullet 4 on the one of two slide.
Do we have, it's interesting that we've looked at these and said, now, why did we do that? And we talked about COVID, we talked about other things.
Yeah, yes, we adjusted to a lot and managed to solve it and normalize it.
So do we have a way, we'll know in the future that what this was about? These will be our,
The people that are here now will know.
yeah,
that.
yeah, I'm just thinking, exactly.
But we also, the value of our adopting this or affirming this or whatever the verb is we do, it's part of the record.
Mhm.
So
If someone wanted to know why we did these things or why you all did these things 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we could go watch the video. I mean, like this, it is available.
That's true.
I did not go back and watch the video.
I wonder how my hair was.
mine was less gray, I can tell you that. Okay, so
I have one final comment to make on both slides. On our principles, there is a mention how we're going to be intentional about the impacts to the communities, any reductions. And considering that we removed the first bullet point on draft budget priorities 2 of 2. And hearing what Commissioner Trees you were saying earlier about, if I'm as a community member, I see these, I hear you saying you're going to include the other commitments. But as a community member, how does this reflect? How do I see myself that this board is actually prioritizing the community, why we do this work, who we do this work for, and I don't see that reflected in the priorities. I'm not that I'm interested in wordsmithing, but I am intentionally interested in being a bit more thoughtful in how we recognize and how do we facilitate an opportunity for the communities who are going to review this to see themselves in these priorities.
I just fundamentally don't think that's what the purpose of this document is. As far as the budget priorities, the public overall has elected all of us to spend hundreds of hours a year, maybe thousands of hours a year, so that we can provide this direction to the team, so that we don't have to have 100,000 people spending hundreds of hours a year doing that. And we are distilling down what our direction is to our team. And we just had a robust discussion about why that is. And I think I'm open to adding things if you think things are missing, but I don't think that critique means that we should be adding a bunch of comment or content that is strictly for the purpose of the public. Like, I don't think that's what we're trying to do here.
couple that with the third budget principle.
Could you go back to the budget? Yes.
Okay,
Well, I still think we need to figure out how we can, the budget priorities does not reflect the community and how we're going to do this work. So I stand by that, and I think we should consider ways we can figure it out. The principles says, and then the priorities are here. So how do we I try to match everything that we've said in the principles and priorities. And I'll be honest, there is value around I see you, I hear you. So, and that does not,
that's
I
the
don't know.
point.
Yeah.
Today is the day when
I'm offering, like, how do we make the community? I'm just,
Yes, I'm asking.
Would you have a specific suggested bullet you want to add?
I think there's one priority. Let me find it. that talks about the service level assessment tool to better understand the reduction impacts to the community members' daily lives. I don't know, I would toss it back to the staff to come back to.
We don't, where's the service level assessment tool in here?
And the principles.
One, two, three, four, five, six.
The seventh bullet point.
Okay, so what are you suggesting? I didn't follow.
I'm asking the staff to come back to, I can't, I'm asking the staff to come back to a bullet point that reflects what
To
we're.
take that and move it or
Not move
it
it,
into
no,
a
not move
budget
it. I think
priority.
it's a great value to have, and I think we've invested a lot of time and effort and resource into the service level assessment, so I appreciate the recognition on our printable document. So I don't recommend we move that. I think it's a great value and a great tool for posterity reasons. But I do want the priority to reflect some of the nuances or sentiments that we're getting at. Bullet point.
Well, so I am having difficulty relating to what it is you're considering, because ensuring that the public is aware of the level of problem solving, if I can use that word, about recognizing the context, are providing direction to the staff, the principles and the priorities go together. They're not tools to be used separately. But in addition, we have our commitment for this journey through the budget calendar. And we have communication about this context where we ensure that not only our community has access and opportunity of all of this, but also through our community-based partners. So I don't think it's achieved through a budget priority.
So you're kicking the can to the community-based organizations.
No, I'm not kicking the can. I'm not agreeing with having some balanced budget problem-solving tool that is reflecting the needs that you were advocating for.
Will you remind me of context here? And to Visa's point, Commissioner Price's point, we've got the budget principles will appear in the budget document. But prior to that, in the budget document, for example, in your letter and in different places, we talk about in service to the community, correct?
Yep.
So I'm thinking about how it flows out from the standpoint that this budget is in service, to your point, to the community that we serve. Here are the steps that we've gone through to accomplish that. And I think that the identification of the principles and the priorities of how to get to the balanced budget is in service to the community. But I'm thinking about it from that whole context. Not we're kind of drilled down into a piece of the process right here.
Mm-hmm.
So does that help?
Yeah, very helpful, Commissioner Trees. What I see missing in the priorities is the principles. If you take everything that's on this principle list here and you compare that to the budget priorities that we've just agreed on, it matches. What's the only thing that's missing is the impacts, prioritizing the reduction of impacts to community members' daily lives. That the opportunity to say that we're going to be intentional because this is the work we do this with. So in recognition of community members, that's what I see missing. That if we were to compare, you say you value, but then you're not prioritizing.
So to translate this into a priority, if I'm listening and hearing you fully, I think a budget priority that you could propose would be to, in direction to staff, would be to say to minimize the impacts of budget reductions to minimize the impacts on community members' lives of budget reductions or something like that. That's how it would translate into a budget priority. I'm not suggesting that be an added one, but I'm giving you a suggestion about how you might work that into a priority.
But that's, to me, can't deliver on that. We can be mindful of it.
Yeah, that's
But
all.
we-
That's all it's
We
saying.
know that we are in a situation where there will be service level
Correct.
reductions. And so there will be, it's highly likely that there will be impacts to somebody's.
Yeah, the
daily
priority would just be to minimize those to the extent possible.
That's gonna
And
be
I'm not even
so
suggesting that. I
subjective.
was trying to give Commissioner Fye a alternative if she wanted to try to put it into a priority.
That's why I was offering the staff to come back. We're not making decisions today. This is an opportunity to discuss and then come back to a bullet point recommendation for us to consider next time we're making that decision at this board level. So I'm not offering a finite of words, but I am looking at Tanya and the experts here in the room to say, could you take that feedback and then come back to a bullet point for the board to consider what we're trying to get at here. And then you and I can check in and or we can have actually wait, not even have a check-in.
So process wise, today is the day for the board as a work group to provide direction. And it is not a day. It was you had previous opportunities to share what was on your mind when we went over these in prior, and to bring in, not kick it to staff again, but to bring in proposals. And so for the sake of time, because there are still more slides to go through before our lunch break, we need to move on from this. What does the board want to do? Do you want to leave the door open, or do you want to move on and say, this is what we've got for today, so we can move on?
I want to be able to consider it, but I agree that today's the day for that consideration. So the content is not here. I don't think staff's job to write our budget priorities for them.
They did today.
We've asked for their support and help in some.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking right now.
I think there's a big degree of difference.
Of course.
So we have budget priorities of prioritize the use of countywide resources on countywide services and county state shared services, address known budget requirements to deliver mandated services. And we all know that there will be impacts to some community members' lives as a result of the adjustments that we're going to have to make.
I actually think, Nafisa, I think we've addressed it, but not as directly as what you're asking for it to be done. When you look at slide 22, the budget principles, we're talking about consult the community service level assessment to better understand reduction impacts on community members' daily lives. I think that addresses that.
Her concern specifically, Commissioner Willie, is that is then not reflected in the priority.
And that's not
If I'm listening to what she said very clearly.
We need to put it in both places.
Well,
no.
that's the discussion we're having now. Most of us, I think, are saying no, but I just want to help with the communication there. That is exactly her point.
Well, I guess I don't think we need to have it in both places. I think you could point to that if you had community organizations or individuals that said, really, are you prioritizing that? I think you could say that's one of our principles, which to me is actually higher than a priority.
Yep.
So I guess that's I hear what you're trying to emphasize here. I think we've addressed that maybe not as directly as you say, but I think it is certainly in our principles. To me, that speaks louder than priorities.
And,
So
and I'm,
just-
one other thing that I'd like to say is I think this discussion has raised for me the need to make sure as we go through this entire budget process that we are highlighting the fact that we recognize the impact on the community that this budget situation will have. And I don't think that any of us don't want to do that. And I think that it comes out, and Tanya, your budget letter is your responsibility, but I would encourage and ask that piece be a part of it. But I also believe that it's going to be part of our discussions as we move forward. So I am comfortable with the fact that I look around the table and I think we all recognize we're down to bone. And when we're making these cuts, there's going to be impacts to our community. We know that there have been in the past and there will continue to be. And we have a sensitivity to that. But this is what our reality is. So that's where my comfort level is in relationship to not putting it into the priorities, because I feel like the priorities are that direction. And I've had to struggle with this myself, remembering that that's what the priorities are for us to staff.
Two things. Commissioner Willie, the long-term cap, there things are in principle are also reflected in the priorities.
Some are.
Repeating. Tanya, do you have any thoughts? You've been quiet.
Well, based on feedback from last year, and as I'm hearing this discussion, one option is develop a proposed budget that outlines service changes, impacts to the community.
I'll say that again.
Develop a proposed budget that outlines service changes and impacts to the community. If you recall last year, that any of the reductions, there was the table of reduction. That was within the budget. Your board has asked for increased storytelling within the budget document and presentations. So what I'm trying to weave it, you've had the discussion of there will be cuts, but it's highlighting and communicating what those reductions are and impacts.
So to me, that's not a priority. That's part of the principle in terms of how you go about delivering this proposed budget.
I was just throwing out a suggestion.
Yeah. You were asked for one and
I like that suggestion. I recommend we include that in the budget priorities.
I propose that we include it in the budget principles.
We already have understand reduction impacts to community daily lives. What's missing, this whole discussion has been about the budget priorities, Chair.
Budget priorities is not going, this statement is not going to change the dollars and cents.
Could you repeat again, Tanya, one more time? Because I heard it differently.
Yep. Develop a proposed budget that outlines service changes and impacts to the community.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't, doesn't sound like a priority.
Sounds like a principle.
Sounds priority to me. We're going to prioritize. So I recommend.
I think it's a better one than consulting the community service level assessment tool.
Correct.
Maybe we have it in both places then. Change that to that and then have it both places in the principle.
So as presiding officer, I'm going to make two suggestions. That we have 3 people that support it as a budget principle. We add it to the budget principle. And at this juncture, we still have more content as well as training that starts at time certain at 1 o'clock. So as presiding officer, you've used up the time that we had previously to finish the presentation by noon. So we're now going to meet anywhere between now and 12:10, 12:15, and you'll have a 50-minute lunch break. Okay. we need to move on.
I disagree, but we can, I'm just the one. voice.
I went with the majority.
So here, once again, just ending where we started, upcoming roundtables. Schedule one thing that we made an error, we failed to put on January. That's when we come back and Philip worked you all just on the communication plan that your board want and engagement for budget. So I just want to make a note that should be the bullet point on January. The next slide. Here are the questions for direction. So question number 1, does the board support the proposed budget direction for the county administrator to develop a proposed budget? And specifically, when I say that, I'm referring to slides 18, 19, and 20. The second question is regarding, does your board have any further changes to the budget principles and priorities?
But back on number 1, you also talked about making sure that 7 and 8.
Yeah, would be part of the budget principles and priorities.
Yeah.
That would come back.
Yeah, so not just those slides you
Yep.
listed.
Yep.
So I'll kick it off. You've captured all that we've agreed to along the way, and I'm mindful that we'll have these things on consent on December 16th and the plan as outlined for the January 8th roundtable and the January 20th board meeting.
Yeah, I think we've had robust discussion and I support your proposed approach. As we,
It was a good discussion. I completely agree. This is probably deeper than I think we've done previously. But certainly appreciate that. So yeah.
I think that was all.
I was going to give you the credit for it, Jason.
Chair, are you facilitating the question number 1 or both questions? Okay. Tanya, number 1, I do support the direction. Got your work cut out. And I just want to give thanks ahead to the staff of all the hard work they're about to do in terms of preparation to bring to this board a proposed balanced budget. In terms of number 2, here's where earlier I was saying we're not making a decision today. There is an opportunity to consider that bullet point for the budget priorities. Says, does your board have any further changes to the budget principles and priorities? Under that says, if there are not substantial changes, staff will make changes, request approval on consent at the December 16th board meeting. So I think I will make a recommendation to include that during that meeting, that budget priorities. I'd rather do it today so that we can just finalize it. But I do think that there is value in telling somebody out there that I see you and I hear you, and our budget priorities certainly does not exude that value.
So for the record, Commissioner Fye, you had the opportunity of that. You made your proposal and the majority, we had a majority balanced with the need for us to move on. You certainly have every right to bring it back again, and maybe you'll have a different outcome, but you may have the same outcome. Just be prepared for that.
I hear you, Chair, and I'm responding to the slide here to articulate my take on these ones. So so that's number 1 in terms of what I intend to do. And obviously the second part, I look forward to the January 8th roundtable then for consent approval for the board meeting. So all that to say, Tanya, that I will have a exact wording bullet point that you had, perhaps a bit more change once I put it in writing, but I do bring to the board, and I hope you all consider that and think about the values and the legacies you're leaving around our community. Some of you, this could be your last budget opportunity to leave something that says we were always intentional about the impacts to community. We were always front and center, always thinking about the community members. But if you don't, that's fine too. There will be people after us and then people before us there's been. So there's always changes ahead, but I do hope that everybody considers that because there's a lot happening in the world and there's a lot happening for our community members. And it's important that we tell people we see you, we hear you.
The majority did add what was described to the principles, correct? Did I
Yes,
track
we
that
did.
at the end?
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm,
Yes, we did. Or at least the majority did.
I don't
I
know
would-
why you said majority. Obviously, I'm the one arguing for this, so obviously I support it. You
well, I
could be
didn't speak,
not petty and
I
be
think
like,
is also
oh,
why she's.
yeah,
referencing.
unanimously supported the principle. The discussion right now, Chair, is to add it to the priorities so that we're telling the same story. I one voice, and we can have more discussion on the 16th.
I'll also comment that I've had some learnings here about how rather than having a strict, you ask questions when it says questions, we had an improved, robust cycle where we addressed each as we went through it. So this slide was not helpful in capturing the decisions that were made along the way and has only revisited and reinvented the wheel. Food for thought.
Oh, I didn't interpret it that way. I think it was a great way to hold accountability because here it says December 16th is when we're making the final decision. And I think you articulated earlier that we perhaps today is the final day. Make that thought. I think for me, it's a great way to fact check ourselves.
Summary of the direction the staff needed, and I think it's helpful to have. It might, I mean, well, I don't know if it was near the beginning too, but it helps us center what we need to provide direction on.
I know you're not done with the presentation. So when you're ready.
Accounts.
We can move to the chart of accounts, and what I've heard is we will bring this back. We have changes. We'll do the December 16th consent agenda. So, John?
No, in between you and lunch. So I wanted to bring in the chart of accounts, just to talk about the supplemental that'll be coming in December. Well, this is December already, isn't it? On the 16th. And to make sure you understand why we're doing it and what it might look like.
But I also thought the need for it is, oh, sorry, I need to let you.
Yes,
Workday isn't noted here at all.
it is not, I did mention it by name, but I do want to highlight the fact that we're doing this because of Workday and changing the chart of accounts. And I did want to highlight the improvements that Workday is bringing. It's an opportunity for us to organize the naming structure conventions for our chart of accounts in line with GFOA best practice. It better aligns with the ACFR, the Annual Consolidated Financial Reporting conventions. We can better track grant activity, and I'm so excited about that. And then also approval routings will go direct through the system, and so we won't have to have paper copies of expense reimbursements. It'll all be flow through a workflow in the system. Travel authorizations and things like that will be more efficient. And then improve reporting capabilities and data transparency, which we're not going to see right away, but I think as we develop our use of the system, we're going to improve how we can show data and visualize data. So I'm really excited about that. The reason we have to re-adopt the budgets as a supplemental, because some of the fund org structure, which I'll talk about in a minute, have changed. Some have consolidated, and so to be in line with the Oregon budget law, before we execute in the system, we'll re-adopt the budget within the new organizational structure. And so what does that look like? It's this is GFOA best practice. organizing the funds in a series of numbers, right? So a fund is a 3-digit number. In Workday, we have a 4-digit system where the 4th digit indicates a grant. So if it's a 1 or 2, it's a different type of grant within that fund. And just the various categories of funds up through number 6 there, the internal service funds. Those are the ones that 1 through 6, you see those in the budget document. And then the custodial funds, government-wide funds, and investment portfolio funds are things that we coordinate on the back end that go into our financial statements. So not visible in the budget, but budget is comprised of the main funds 1 through 6 series. Next slide is a little bit more detail than you probably need, but in Wizard, the current system Oracle, we have fund and program. And then you have the also different categories, account, report category, and activities that we manage the programs in. And under Workday, it's now fund cost center, is the language. And we have account and report category. In addition to that, we have a number of port tags that we can use to parse data out. So projects primarily used a lot by land use and transportation for various projects. We have the grants tag to manage grants. And then there's other ones that are new, I guess, for us in Workday is locations and regions. So locations, we can track physical job locations of employees, work locations for facilities, ship to address of inventory, location of assets. And then regions more used to track non-Washington County government activities, such as payables, receivables. For example, that have to do with local school districts or cities or counties. We can track the region where the funds are being allocated. So I think there's a lot of capability in there. And as we have set this up, hopefully we've set it up where we can get the maximum benefit from.
John, sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
John, I have a question, and I'm very glad to hear you say this is more detail than you needed to know. Because when I saw this, I had a question around, like, what does the learning curve look like for the organization to be able to?
Yeah, it's a different practice. Some workflows may change. You know, just getting used to the new numbers and system. We're so used to knowing, you know, this fund is fund 514, right? And so we now have a different number. Although Workday's more AI efficient, so you actually don't. You can type in a text, what you want to search for, and it'll pull up things. So it's more user friendly, especially with the new generation and how things are going. It's kind of moving us in that direction.
I want to just commend just the work the finance team has done. I just also especially Sarah King. She has really worked with departments as we work through this, understanding where we are now and moving to. So this is a change, but our finance teams across the county have been on that journey. So we're moving forward.
So I want to thank you for doing this crosswalk, because while we may not have to have the degree of visibility or transfer, it is very important for the board to understand the extent of work that goes into making the transition and understanding the transition and normalizing its use. I also want to come back to an item that we touched on in the earlier part of the presentation about the general fund use and how some use of the general fund is for matching a grant. Sometimes it's for covering the cost recovery. Can't remember the acronym now. The internal service. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Not a lot
So
of cost or cost share.
it's the fund of last resort. And I'm wondering if I want to raise it now so that it's not an afterthought.
Mhm.
Well, we didn't consider that then, kind of
Well.
thing. I don't, and I'm not wise enough to know if it's a work tag or whatever. But just like you talked about, you know, where someone's physical place of work is, I I hope that you're thinking that through in terms of a tag so that it will be easy to generate the report about the general fund use. You know, is it a general fund funded service
Right,
or is
right.
it because of these gaps?
Absolutely. I certainly hope we have that fidelity, and the reporting, I think, is going to be the big thing. And what reports can we pull out, and how can we organize that? But it's important to know that we have the capability in the system to do that, and making sure it's the same across all departments as much as we can.
Which brings me to the question you said in the earlier slide, December 16th. So does this mean we can remove the hold for the special meeting of December 30th?
Not yet. So staff are currently working through producing the new budget as of this last week. Sometimes there's hiccups that occur, and we encountered a hiccup that I'm currently waiting for a report back on the timing. So more to come in the very near future.
Well, we'll know by the end of the day, the 16th, if we need to have something
Hopefully before that.
or need to keep it just in case. Yep, I'm with you.
Thank you.
Fully support.
Just the last slide that I have is just, what's different, the way we adopt the budget. We adopt at the fund organizational level. So this is an example of our general government section in the budget adoption document. And you'll just see the difference in the fund numbers and the org unit numbers, and where there might be some funds that are consolidated, you might see less lines or more lines in the process. And when we build the budget book, it'll look the same as you see it now, just different numbering system. So.
Thank you
Will
for
we-
the accessible presentation of this.
Will we be losing the look back to prior?
No, so we are putting back in, I think, 10 years of history, so we'll be able to pull that out. And so that's another big thing. Staff has been really working hard to make sure we have that capability.
It'll be a little messy though.
It can be. We have a separate system, Prism, that's an interface, and there's work that's being done.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Very well done. Thank you very much. So at this juncture, we will adjourn our roundtable. We will be reconvening at 1 o'clock for board training right here in the same room. But that is not recorded on Zoom and it's not a open public meeting. Okay, great. See you all at 1.